Good evening, folks. This is, I don't know how many times I've gone to film this, but a flip through kind of a review, sort of mild discussion around the local honey picture box, an oracle and self-love toolkit by Emily Wilcox. It is printed by ursavioletstudios.com in the US, and it's a pricey little number, but it is an incredible tool for anyone who is ready to do some work and wants to have something to hand. Let's face it, therapy can be expensive, but as outlined in the guidebook, this is not intended to be a hang on, she said it beautifully when she said the local honey picture box does not represent an all-encompassing or definitive statement on self-love. It is not intended to override your own experiences, does not purport to treat any diagnosable mental illness, nor is it a substitute for qualified mental health services. I really appreciate that because sometimes I see things being bandied around that can be, I don't know, probably just a little bit irresponsible with the depth of some people's suffering. So if for any reason you are feeling triggered, overly emotional through this walkthrough, please click off. And if you need to seek some support, please seek support. I love it for many reasons. The guidebook is excellent. The meaning of the cards, excellent. I don't love it for the slippy, very slippy cardstock. Yeah, hate that. It's 44 cards, so that's a pretty reasonable. See, it's just very frustrating. I'm not quite sure how we'll go about this. It might be a long video, so, I apologise for that. Some people might find it interesting. I know I probably would have liked to walk through like this. I like what I intend to do. So, just jumping in. Emily started this project, which took her several years, I believe, after a painful breakup, and was working on her own self-love. There's a quote in here as to why it's got to do with honey. Now, I should have been a little bit more prepared around that. Give me a min. Okay, she does say she was in an existential crisis when she started this project. Okay, so the reference to the honey and the bees comes late in the guidebook, around card 18. Last night I was sleeping. I dreamt, marvellous error, that I had a beehive here inside my heart, and the golden bees were making white combs and sweet honey from my old failures. Antonio Machado. I think that's why, but I'm assuming that's an assumption. All right, so I will do a little talk about the card, and then there's a couple that I might read from the guidebook to give you an understanding of what that's like. So the black hole, it's sort of like alluding to the spot within us that there's no love for ourselves, that kind of existential loneliness. I have written a few little notes off to the side. I'm not a genius. It's often subconscious, which is half the bloody trouble, really, isn't it? It's because we don't actually know what's going on. We don't know what's going on. We just know it feels like shit. The black hole can become the driver. And yeah, it's a really good entry in the guidebook. Highly recommend too, because that sort of existential loneliness can turn us into someone who put up with shit. It means sometimes that we'll become, we'll use various things to try and get away from it, addictions, and not just drugs. It can be anything. It can be putting up with shit. It can be food. It can be whatever. Everyone's different. Block to awareness. This is about self-abuse habits, shutting down the capacity to honestly look at yourself. creating safe place can help seeing shortcomings as well as our positive attributes and worthiness. So the entrance in the entries in the guidebook elaborate much further. Commitment is about finding a way to love all aspects of ourselves. You know, like we kind of try to shove the bits that we don't want or the bits that we feel like are unacceptable away, and that just makes problems later on, or, you know, straight away really. So this sort of commitment idea is to make promise to sort of your inner child, your inner you, your soul. No more sellouts, no more turning your back to please others, no more avoiding or ignoring red flags. This is like, it's time to commit to this. This is time. Be your own sweetie. Treat yourself how you want someone who you're dating to treat you. And sometimes, even if you are dating someone, that means, and they're not stumping up, or, sorry, that's probably an experience, they're not showing up the way you would like, you give yourself the things that you want. So if it's like nurturance, give yourself that. Captain of your own support system. You've got to start being your own sweetie. Physical, mental, emotional. This is being a loving parent to self to cover your basic needs. Make sure that you're tending to those three things. Sometimes it can be mind, body, spirit, whatever. But make sure that within each day, and it's a great way to sort of dial back and see how you've done that day and where have you taken care of the little you that lives in there. The inverse golden rule. Do unto yourself as you would have others do unto you. So this is more watching that, you know, like, of course, do unto others as you would have done unto yourself, but do unto yourself as well, because repeated self-neglect just fosters resentment and bitterness and sadness and loneliness. So if you would rush in to help others, how about you rush in for yourself? Protect yourself. See yourself as worthy of protection, and take precautions. It may mean kicking some people to the curb. And, you know, that's not easy. For some people, they're living in, you know, like small communities. It's not, you can't just go, oh, I'm never going to see them again, when you clearly will. So it can be an internal thing first. It can be something that you just start to realise as you can kind of work through this deck step by step and just revisit it gently. Gently does it too. No radical sudden rips and movements, please. It's about self-love, which means taking it slow. Okay. How much do you trust yourself? That's a tough one, isn't it? So it's establishing trust on having your own back and trusting that trust is there, and it takes a while, especially if you've been betraying yourself for a long time. Have you neglected yourself, abandoned yourself? Trusting other people to do it or wanting other people to do it? How much do you actually trust yourself? And how can you build on that? Stop hurting yourself. I'm going to read this one. Okay. Is there something you're doing that is harming you? Stop it. Remaining in an ongoing situation or pattern that undermines you is a sure way to invite pain and shame while lowering your self-esteem. Allowing a pattern of distraction to continue unchecked is an expression of agreement with one or both of two lies. The lie that you aren't worth better, and the lie that something else isn't possible. These are traps. Recognizing repetitive patterns of distraction and doing what it takes to interrupt or change them is foundational to claiming agency. Sometimes it takes time to admit that we need help. That's okay. Things happen on our own natural timeline, and it's often only once you are absolutely clear on the problem that you can then become open to the solution. It's often not possible to do a clean, immediate 180 shift. on an entrenched behavior, and that's okay too. Learning new ways is a process. As long as you are showing up in good faith and making a genuine effort, you're aligning to the truth of your worth and the possibility of a better experience. Break the cycle. Get help. You're worth it. License to create. It's okay to take up space. Enjoy, play, create. Override starvation programs. This is about denying yourself. This is not necessarily what it might immediately appear to be, but it's when to be a good person, we have to have less. We have to give more to others. We don't need nice things. We don't deserve them. And this can include things like comfort and attention and affection and grace and forgiveness. This is a really powerful card, and I highly, I just think it's a really important message, is that's quite an entrenched attitude, particularly towards women. Let's face it, is just like you've got to sacrifice, all the time sacrifice for others. Do without, and the underlying message of that is that you're less than. So this is some of the work that needs to be done, I feel, in that realm. Discomfort of growth versus discomfort of harm. This is an important one because there's a difference between a discomfort of growth. That's like the example kind of given is like when you've decided that you want to run a marathon and it's a conscious decision that you want to do something like that. And it kind of sucks, like you're hurting sometimes and you don't want to do it. But those kind of growth things are boosting your self-esteem and it's because it's something that it aligns with your inner self because it's something that you specifically want to do. Whereas harm is staying in toxic situations. And harm is when it reduces your self-esteem, damages it, eliminates it sometimes, and just decreases your own sense of value. So identifying and understanding the difference between the two, very important. Boundaries, identity, will. Self-love equals identifying what is me and what is not me. And sometimes that's like in life, half the battle is just working out what you don't want. Accepting truth of what I think, feel and want is and to interact with. And look at your anger. It alerts to where there's been a violation of boundaries. Whenever you get that hot flash or something, something's there. Those kind of triggers are the entry into what boundary's been pushed. Genuine yes, genuine no. Be honest about it. No is a full sentence. So it's yes sometimes. Just, yep, I want to do that. But only if you mean it. Sometimes the answer is a genuine maybe. Self-sacrifice is an ego trap. Self-sacrifice is not the same as compromise. Compromise can be a healthy part of a relationships. Sacrifice is a cut-off. It is an internal violence where we are basically saying to ourselves, to the universe and everyone else around us that my value is not as high as the other person or the other thing or whatever it is. And, it's an ego trap. Sometimes we're just trying to find love through all the wrong places. And it's just really important to remember that suffering is not a virtue. Okay, how much do you respect yourself? Do you have enough regard for your own rights, feelings and wishes? Self-respect equals self-worth. The Trinity. This is one of the only cards that doesn't actually kind of explain itself. So the Trinity for this is around personal growth, and there's 3 important questions, or 3 things to do. Look at yourself, an honest assessment. Deal with yourself, take responsibility, and be kind with yourself. Acceptance and approval. There's a really nice entry around that. So, love is alchemy. To love only the pleasing is unimpressive. I love that. It is. You know, it's pretty cool it's fucking hard work when you have had this narrative in your head for a long time about yourself. It is hard work, I ain't gonna lie, but getting there is worth the effort, where you're turning lead into gold, those shameful moments, those things where you just always didn't really feel like you fitted, probably because you didn't and you tried to, finding an appreciation and even humour with the things that went wrong. You know, turn lead into gold, make gold out of it. You know, like, it's not always easy. And back to the start, you know, if this is too much, please click off, get support. But ultimately, what else are we going to do with really bad times or hard times? They can just stick with us and be our narrative for the rest of our days, or we can turn them into gold, use them, heal them, and then turn them into gold to make sure that those lessons are sort of expressed out into the world in a positive light. Rant over. Rebellion. No gods, no masters. I'm going to read this one too. This card represents the energy of rebellion, a powerful force that brings liberation when directed appropriately and can cause suffering when wielded without discernment. At its core, rebellion energy represents a person's absolute determination to be free. It is the spark, grit, and drive of the fighting spirit that says, no, we will not settle for this oppressive bullshit. Whether encountering an unjust social hierarchy in the outer world or a pattern of internalized cruelty, rebellion energy is what powers the will to break through barriers. Rebellion energy fuels a person's gumption to overthrow destructive programming and parasitic thought forms that would keep them small and sick. It's the part that is hell-bent on the chance to experience freedom of mind and spirit as a dignified and individuated being with full agency. Often this is actualized through taking responsibility for things that are within your zone of autonomy, instead of allowing them to languish. Irresponsibility is a folly that sets up infiltration points. When rebellion energy is misplaced, it can look like railing against constraints that we have no individual or collective influence over. With self-will at the wheel, and spinning out of control, we can end up fighting futile battles against the limitations of reality itself. Other times, misplaced rebellion energy can manifest as a persecution complex, in which a person insists they're the victim while trampling on the needs of others, or it can take the form of outrage directed horizontally instead of it to the top of the power structure. Man, that girl can write. Okay, navigate conflict by grounding in self-love. Conflict's part of life. Keeping the peace is not self-love. It's just, again, back to that self-sacrifice. You're turning on yourself to appease others. Finding a way to maintain self-respect in complex situations. Vulnerability and strength. Vulnerability means an opening to the unknown, and it's not risky or sacrificial or indiscriminate harm. Vulnerability requires honesty and courage and discernment. I'll add that. You know, there's no point being vulnerable with ourselves, but it's really up to us to know the difference and whether we've got that needy little thing hopping around on our shoulder trying to tell us, oh no, it'll be different this time. Vulnerability is actually a strength if we use it right. Grief allowance. Our society sees grief as inconvenient, but it's a long process. Well, it's not, it's an individual process that I know. And one of the things I think in many ways grief's an honour because we have loved. So yeah, it's not a walk apart in the park, this deck. Emotional landfill. Too much emotional baggage right there. Clutter. Old unprocessed stuff. Body keeps the score. Shoving it into the cupboard won't work. And, just trying to chuck it out either. This just sort of alludes to how it just sort of rots and clogs up everything. It really needs to be taken out and dealt with organically, composted. I don't know. It needs to be repurposed is another way that I would look at that. If it's not going to organically become something new, then it will need to be repurposed, in my humble opinion, and whether that be sublimated out into writing or music or whatever. The container. New possibilities and a new place to put things. A container can be a counsellor. A container can be a journal. A container can be a very trusted person who isn't going to project their own shit onto you. Be careful there. It gives you a safe place to take up space and have your own sort of feel supported but have your own back. Very, very interesting concept, the container, and I think it's something that feels risky, but over time, the more we build the muscle of self-worth and self-respect and self-protection, finding a respectable container and a trustworthy container is a marvy thing. Okay, speak your truth. It's pretty clear. Take up space. Uncensor yourself. I'm going to read this one too. When we believe it's not okay for us to think, feel, or want certain things, we often tend to suppress those things through internal censorship. This leads to living in a state of chronic inauthenticity. Suppressed urges don't go away. They just get more powerful and come out in twisted ways. Keeping the full reality of your thoughts, feelings, and desires under a tight wrap, so much so that you may be privately out of touch with key aspects of your own experience, is a coping mechanism that results in self-alienation, really well-hidden agendas, and emotional unavailability. Remove the shackles of shoulds and shouldn'ts on your thoughts, feelings, and desires. Think the thing you're not supposed to think. Feel the thing you're not supposed to feel. Want the thing you're not supposed to want. Whatever there is allowed to be there. How you act on it is another matter. Very good. Airing your trauma versus healing your trauma. Talking about things is not the same as healing them. And there's a difference between healing and exposing a festering wound. She wrote that, I didn't. And I think it's very true. Wielding trauma to escape accountability and maintaining a victim mentality, and sometimes to manipulate others. I've certainly experienced that with people who said they couldn't possibly be held accountable because of all the things that they'd experienced, and no matter what signs were showing them that they were thereby creating other victims, they were pretty stuck in their story. So I think it's something that we can all be mindful of. It's a tough gig growing up. True healing doesn't leave you eternally beating the drum of the worst things that happen to you. Absolutely. So true. Okay, triggers as arrows. Triggers are disproportionately larger reactions than the situation calls for, and it's not about the thing. And, sometimes if we just let it, we'll go into a triggered heightened state, then sort of plummet, go a bit lower than we were initially, come back up to a stasis point, and think maybe that we've moved through it until the next time. So avoiding them means that they're never allowed to heal. injuries need care, not contempt. So, what are your trigger points? They're the guide, they're the light, they're the way in to, seeing what's really going on. Honour your pace. Season cycles, expansion. Release urgency. We're always looking at clocks. We've got to do this. We've got to do that. I should be doing this. Do that. Don't have that nap because you're lazy if you do, all that shit. Thank yourself. Simple practice. Go every day and think of the times you were kind to yourself throughout that day and say thank you. It's a really nice practice in the guidebook about that. So at the end of the day, you can just sort of go, oh yeah, I made myself that nice lunch and thank you. And I took myself for a walk. That was really nice. I enjoyed that walk. Thank you. That kind of thing. Tend to your mental garden. What are your unhelpful thought patterns? This is something that I will do a video down the track around. It's kind of anchored also in cognitive behavioural therapy and a good technique to use to help monitor where your thoughts are going throughout the day. But don't just let that brain rule everything. See yourself, self-validation, seeking outside validation, just opening us up to be controlled or be mentally abused by others or putting up with shit we just should not be. So self-reflective and self-observing means that you'll get healthy self-regard, and then see yourself, call bullshit on yourself or others when you see it. Don't try to convince people. If they don't want your opinion, then don't put it to them. Offer grace. So, one thing is we can try to convince people that, oh, no, love me and all that stuff. But also we can get into some pretty heated arguments at this day and age around various things. And one of the best things you can do is live the energy that you want in the world, and bashing tabletops and trying to impress our opinions on others isn't going to work. We can't control other people. State our case, engage in healthy habits and move on. Stay curious. We run the risk of over-identifying with our ideas. So by staying curious, we can then potentially open up to more empathetic ways of being, thinking, from different opinions or different ways of seeing things. It's always healthy to go and see something from a different vantage point, do some research, learn some stuff, stay curious. Mind your ratio. Self-love's a practice. It's okay to have moments when you feel like shit, or you have reverted or gone back into old patterns. Just grab it and watch your ratio. Just make sure that even if this is coming in, that you're able to also bring some positive to light. Connection with the whole. We don't want to just become an island. Sometimes it's a bloody nice thought. And solitude's wonderful for healing, but with healthy boundaries, we can explore our part in the world and our connection to others and find our tribe. It's really important to keep searching, be curious and continue. The more we settle into our genuine, authentic self, the more the people that are in alignment with who we are will find us. Forgiveness through repair. Gonna read it. Sometimes people talk about self-forgiveness as if it's a decision one can simply choose to make, an attitude that can be put on at will and conjured with some tacky affirmations. But genuine forgiveness in one's relationship to self, as in interpersonal relationships with others, happens as a result of a healing and repair process. If you have let yourself down, failed to protect or advocate for yourself, abandoned or betrayed yourself by behaving in opposition to your values, or experienced other internal transgressions, then there might be resentment and lack of trust plaguing your internal experience. This is understandable. Don't presume you'll just sweep this all away with the snap of a finger. It's not realistic, and it's an insult to the part of you that needs restitution. Don't expect self-forgiveness to come automatically without a decent apology and meaningful repairs. It can be helpful to start by facing the part of yourself that was let down and owning what happened and the impact that it had. You can do this while acknowledging that the actions you took were the best you were capable of at the time. Follow this up with a track record of changed behaviour that counteracts the harm and establishes a safe and nurturing new norm. Sometimes we also need to let ourselves off the hook for things that were never our responsibility to begin with. This is forgiveness, not as a flighty abstraction, but a practicality. Love your demons. To fight one's demons is to live under a curse. Love with backbone, with grit to face them. There's a really great entry. I won't keep reading entries, but there's a really great entry around this, and this is not as easy as it sounds, but it is as important as anything. We don't get to just remove things, and those things are often been trying their butts off to protect us. For whatever way, it might have come out and done some dumb shit, but it was only trying to do it to protect us. So trying to just get rid of them is really unfair. So learning to love them, build relationship, is a really powerful, very powerful tool in healing. Make room for opposites. Both things can be true. Union of opposites, duality, it's a reality. We need to find this within ourselves before we can expect to see it in the world. Being one-sided, it's too restrictive, and it's like the masculine, feminine. Any of us who are into tarot, we're all over it, eh? Reality check. Thinking clearly and controlling, remaining open to reorientating. Reality check. Am I jumping to conclusions on this? Am I overthinking this? Is this as serious as it needs to be? Take a reality check. Not everything's full on. Love that card. Not destroying any parts. Same thing, really, as what came up before. Making room for opposites in a way, or the demons. Is self-vilifying, or vilifying part of yourself is self-hatred. That is like, oh, you idiot, or, you're such a this or such a that. You're just trying to get rid of it, or you can only sort of try and suppress it or condemn it. So understanding is probably your best option, and bit of forgiveness to just go, well, I can see what you were doing there, and thanks anyway, but, it's really okay to have a bit of a chat with yourself. Transformation, redirect, new outlet, sublimation, like writing, any form of art form is an incredible way to sublimate and these parts that we probably don't really want, turn them into a character in a story. If there's a part of you that feels like you're clumsy, then make a clumsy character in a story, but a lovable one, stuff like that. Welcome lounge. Feelings don't, it's the same sort of thing. Needs, I don't know what I've written there. The former parts of ourselves that we've tried to conceptualize them, or try to conceptualize them and welcome them into the house. Like the girl who used to ... She wants to show up sometimes. Let her in. She can sit in the front room. She's not coming all the way. She's not sticking around. She's welcome to come and visit. But, and stop telling them all to fuck off, because that just doesn't work. So you might as well make a space for them and accept them. And then have a committee meeting with them. And then have a dialogue with all aspects of yourself, like the angry one with the sad one, or the shy one, and what are we all trying to get? What are we all doing? You know, what's the ultimate aim here? And lucky last, completeness. It is a massive entry. Hang on a sec. All right, I was going to read it. It's a massive entry, so I'm not going to. It's already a really long video. Self-esteem, emotional availability. You know, completeness. That's what we want, to be emotionally available with self-esteem, to be able to hold our own, walk with honour, walk with in grace, have our own back, not be an asshole, and live in kindness. I hope you found this interesting. I know it's really long, but I wanted to do it justice because it's quite a spendy deck, and you really need to know if it's something that you want to invest in. So, yeah, I've said it before, the cardstock sucks. The border's not so sure, but I highly recommend it if you like to do self-work. I hope you're going really well, and I'll chat to you next time. Bye.